Hello, everyone, and welcome to Harbourtime Strategy Talks. I'm your host, Colin Harbour, and it's December 8th, 2020. This is season 2. Very happy to get season 2 started. I think we've got a great guest today. We've got a great topic, as always, strategy, and we'll be talking about a couple of different things. But I wanted to mention, hey, today is National Bartender Day. At least it is on December 8th. By the time you listen to this, it may be a little bit later, but you might want to hug a bartender. They've had a rough year. I know we all have, but if you see a bartender, if you know a bartender, send them a virtual high five. But don't worry if you miss it, because December 10th is National Lager Day. And so we will be able to continue the bar theme throughout the week. So yeah, this is season 2, like I mentioned. The first season, I got a lot of great feedback. I've tried to change a few things from that. I've even got a new microphone. I'm really working on enhancing the show and getting a lot of good content out to everyone. But today we're going to cover a few interesting topics with one special guest. I will introduce our guest in just a minute. But wanted to ask a few questions. 1, have you ever heard of a hub zone? 2, have you ever started a business? 3, have you ever moved back to a community with the sole purpose of bringing meaningful jobs to a community that has been underserved for quite some time? I've been thinking about those questions as I prepared for this recording. I mean, I had heard of a hub zone. I know what hub zones are. I've read about hub zones, but I haven't really given them much thought. And I actually have started a business in the past and started a business this year, though all businesses are a little bit different. But I've never moved back to a community with the sole purpose of bringing value and meaningful things to that community. So today our guest is a gentleman by the name of Carl Brown. Carl is the founder, principal owner, and president of Cavanal Services. I've known Carl for several years now. We first met around 2016, when we both worked for different companies. I see him on the road at industry conferences. We're both in the mortgage servicing service provider, mortgage servicing and default world. And in fact, I told this to him a few weeks ago. I remember one conference, and for those of you who go do a lot of industry conferences and do a lot of things, you understand how grueling they can be sometimes. We were on the tarmac returning from a conference, I believe in Orlando, and Carl was either right behind me or right in front of me, but he turned and looked at me and he just said, I'm getting too old for this. And, if you know Carl, you know he's not too old for this type of stuff. But more recently, I connected with him when he moved from sunny California back to Southeastern Oklahoma, which is relatively close to me here in Dallas-Fort Worth. So, Carl, thank you for joining us today. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? So, who is Carl Brown and what is Cavanal Services?
Well, Colin, first of all, thanks for including me on your Harbourtime podcast. I've been in the business, like you said, for a long time, longer than I thought I would be. The servicing default business, looking for a couple of different national underwriters, developing a default platform on 2 different occasions. And up around 2010 or 11, I started thinking about Cavanal Services, not by name, but the concept of bringing jobs, offshore and nearshore jobs back to the U.S. And I've often thought, how could we economically and from a feasible standpoint, how could we do that? And being a member of the Choctaw Nation, growing up in Southeastern Oklahoma, I stayed connected. I wouldn't say as closely as I would have liked, but I certainly, my mother's very active in the tribe. And I've often thought, are there ways that working with the tribe, working with Native Americans, the different opportunities that are there and available to them, the resources available to them, was there an opportunity to use the right word here, not leverage, but utilize those opportunities to compete in the cost and the benefits associated with outsourcing of specifically mortgage servicing related jobs.
Yeah. Well, good. And for those of you who don't know, I've been reading a little bit about the Choctaw Nation. And so I was just going to kind of get this information out about the Choctaw Nation that I got off their website, the official website. But the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma is a federally recognized tribe whose service territory covers approximately 11,000 square miles on 10.5 counties in rural southeastern Oklahoma. The nation is comprised of nearly 200,000 members worldwide and is the third largest tribe in the United States. So you cover a lot of ground geographically with the Choctaw Nation and in southeastern Oklahoma, and quite a large number of membership worldwide. So we've kind of covered why, you moved back to southeastern Oklahoma to get back in the area, but let's talk a little bit about your startup strategy. After all, this is a business strategy podcast. We talked a little bit about how you decided to start the business, but we can elaborate on that. But also, what are a couple of key strategic decisions that you made at the beginning of the process?
Well, like I mentioned, I've had the idea, the concept for many years, 10 plus years. And about 2 years ago, I started doing more research, educating myself on what resources not only the Choctaws, but Native Americans have when it comes to how we can properly hire people, what assistance we can get in hiring. So I guess part of the initial startup strategy was educating myself, understanding what I really, in theory, wanted to do, but in reality, what I needed to do. So that started about 2 years ago. We've had a couple of different startup strategies, so to speak. The story sells itself. Working with in HUBZones, historically underutilized business districts, which Indian land, HUBZone Indian land, southeastern Oklahoma, almost all of that is HUBZone. HUBZones are properties and areas that can be designated based on economic situations that get reevaluated, but the Native American, the Choctaw Nation, and the other nations of Oklahoma pretty well indefinitely HUBZone communities. So that's a great story. All residents living here, whether you're Native or not, are living in Choctaw Nation. So, the strategy was to educate myself generally and then educate myself more specifically with the Choctaws, their economic development group, understanding what assistance we can get, what support we can get to bring this vision together, along with the local communities. The community we're in was again, I grew up in this community. I came back here after 35 years. So it's not a community I'm not familiar with. And surprisingly, they're still familiar with me. Good and bad, I guess. But
Well, we'll think it's good. We'll call it good.
I think so too. But a couple of strategies we had, when we were talking to large groups, we had some large potential investors that we wanted to go big early. A little thing called the pandemic slowed that down.
Sure.
Telling the story was easy. Getting interest was easy. Kind of getting out of the gate was, I don't say it was hard, but it was definitely we were more apprehensive because we were entering something that we didn't know what we were entering. But, our strategy was to go for it.
Yeah.
We already left California, my wife and I. She's a Southern California girl. How I got her to move to Poto, Oklahoma, I think is a testament to my sales skills.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Consummate salesman, no doubt.
So the strategy was to educate ourselves and get involved with the community and believe in our story. That really is the best startup strategy you can have. You have to believe in yourself and what you're doing.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned this little thing called the pandemic that has impacted us all. Started. Think back to the first week or so of March. I was at a happy hour with some industry people here in Dallas, and I know you were in town, and I think you stopped by it after I left, and just think about how different things are now from then. I mean, things change so rapidly, but I think that also it can impact business and business strategy. I mean, you had certain plans, let's say in late February, and they've changed some over time. So let's talk a little bit about the key components of your business, and I'm going to list them, and maybe we can expand a little bit on them. But one of the key words that stands out to me is opportunity. 2 is onshore, and 3 is Choctaw Nation, and then / Oklahoma. I put those together, even though I know they're separate, but because of the region that they're in. So let's expand on those for a couple of minutes. What are you hoping, and I guess each one of those could probably be an entire topic, quite frankly, but what are you hoping to Cavanal to achieve in opportunity, maybe just a summary on that, onshore, summary on that, and then with the Choctaw Nation? I know we've talked about it, but let's kind of summarize it a little bit.
Well, opportunity, well, it can speak to our clients for sure. It speaks to our community. There are the types of jobs that are available. I call them resume jobs. There's not a lot of resume jobs here in Southeastern Oklahoma, specifically the rural areas. There's a lot of there are chicken plant industries. There are prison industries. There are different things. There's a lot of nursing educated people here. But generally speaking, there's not a lot. I mean, I guess certainly those jobs you can put on your resume, but I feel like Cavanal Services is bringing an industry that we're not trying to create handcuffs here. We're trying to create a bridge, and a bridge to a better life, better opportunity, jobs that they can enjoy. And for the young people that, or anybody that's working for us that wants to relocate, like I did, to Southern California. I wish I'd had this on my resume when I went to Southern California. I probably wouldn't have had a couple of jobs I wish I'd never had.
Right.
But this puts something on a resume, especially considering our proximity to Dallas. As you know, I'm sure most of the listeners know, Dallas is the epicenter of mortgage servicing for sure, and specifically mortgage servicing, but generally mortgage in general. We're depending on where you start in Oklahoma, we're an hour to 3.5 hours away. If we build this, what I envision is this highway of outsourcing centers, and that might lead us to the onshore aspect of the next phase. So creating opportunity for our residents, native and non-native, and bringing a business and bringing something that, candidly, I grew up back here. So, I can say what I want to say. It's awful, cool in the summer and warm in the winter inside of a building working. Right. And there's not a lot of jobs like that here. And we're excited to bring that. So, and as far as the onshoring, I mean, that generally is the large vision. The vision is that we can build multiple business outsourcing operations that are more specific to different businesses within servicing, or even origination in 4 or 5 communities that make that highway up from Dallas to Poto. Poto is located on the Arkansas state line, southeastern Oklahoma. It winds back around to Durant, which is on the Texas state line. There are 4 to 5 communities there that are supported by Chi-Michi Technology Centers, which is career tech for people coming out of high school, as well as young adults or older adults that want to identify new skills to create work opportunities. We've worked closely with them. Before the pandemic hit, we had started a curriculum. We want to build a curriculum that's geared around our industry, so that similar to Detroit for the auto industry, or the Carolinas for manufacturing furniture, or the Dakotas, or wherever it was for credit cards. I don't see any difference where we can't create a curriculum where people coming out of high school, they can go to career tech to learn to weld, but they can also go to career tech, Kayamishi Tech to learn Mortgage 101. So
Sure.
they're coming into our operation and to our customers ahead of the curve. So that's the broad vision for competing with offshoring, bringing it onshore, offshoring and nearshoring. It's always going to be a price battle, but I think we can get as close as we can to being more effective on competing on cost as anybody in the country, along with the fact that I think that we're accessible to our customers much easier than something going offshore or near shore. Drive from Dallas up through Southeastern Oklahoma is actually a pretty drive, and I think that we're already getting people that have come up here and taken a look at us, so it's nice, even in a pandemic.
And I think that covers the Choctaw Nation, Oklahoma too, and we've done that well. So I was looking back over my notes here. I recall maybe about a month or so ago, I called you and we're working on a project, and I called you and you said, well, I'm delivering headsets to employees right now. And so let's talk a little bit about, just briefly, about managing business during the global pandemic. I'm sure when you started Cavanal and you're president of Cavanal, and I know you've got executive leadership, probably, not that you're not a servant leader, but probably one of the last things on your list was going to be driving around delivering headsets as your task for a day. But so let's talk just briefly. We talked about the pandemic, managing a startup. I mean, what are some of the challenges, with managing that? You've got a vision, you've got a company that's going in the right direction, a global pandemic hits. How do you manage that?
You manage it day to day. Thank God I have a wife that you talk about somebody didn't think she was going to do what she's doing when she made the trip to Oklahoma. She's doing something totally different. But she's the one that does accounting, does IT. I do the hardware. She does the programming. And then having a lot of solid people around us that are willing to work till midnight to deal with a project. But yeah, I mean, servant leadership is something that I certainly felt I was able to do in corporate America as an executive, but certainly I always had an appreciation for people that started companies. I have a greater appreciation now, but I also have the appreciation when they say, hey, I worked for 2 years and didn't make a dime, but it's mine. I understand that now as well.
Sure.
So there's a real return on that, and running those headsets out to one of our employees whose mother had tested positive, and we couldn't bring her in, but she was willing to work and had not everybody here has Wi-Fi. She has Wi-Fi, so I was able to set her up at home and not only allow us to get the production, but allow her to earn a check. So that's rewarding. Those are things that we'll look back on fondly now, a month later, much more. 5 years later, it's gonna be something we're like, yeah, that was trying, but it was something that the rewards paid off.
Sure. So who is your favorite business leader and why? And I understand this changes for most people from time to time, but if you had to kind of pick someone right now that you think is a great business leader and why?
Well, I've had a lot of mentors in the past. I've actually taken a lot from the people that have given me opportunities when candidly I probably wasn't qualified for that opportunity. So I've really kind of built my who I am as far as a leader as a component of many people. So they're listening to this. You know who you are. Thank you. And the bad parts of my leadership are mine. They're not yours. I have to get rid of those. But if I'm identifying somebody that's nationally known, it was probably I would say Steve Jobs, and not because I've read seen things on Steve Jobs. It's not about Steve Jobs as a human being, but as far as his vision and his belief in business. And I've quoted him several times, and one of the quotes it's paraphrased, but when he was starting Apple and he was told by his investors to go get a CEO, he went to John Scully, who was the CEO of Pepsi at the time. And Scully was like, I don't know what Apple is. Who are you kids? What are you doing? Why would I leave Pepsi, the second largest beverage company in the world, to go be CEO of a company that I don't know anything about? And Jobs looked me in the eye and said, well, let me ask you something. Do you want to sell sugar water the rest of your life, or do you want to change the world? And, we're not going to change the world, but we're going to change some lives doing what we're doing. So that philosophy kind of applies.
Well, you may change the world. You don't know, right? You don't know. You change lives. You don't know who they impact. You don't know who they impact ultimately, right? I mean, at the end of the day. So I guess kind of to wind down, if someone wants to reach Carl Brown and Cavanal Services, what's the best way to do that?
Well, it's C Brown at Cavanal Services, Cavanal services.com. That's my email. You can contact me at my office number, which is 918-564-2751. And I'll even give you my cell. Call my cell, 949. It's a California number, 949-521-2087, 949-521-2087. I'd love to talk to you. I'd love to get your ideas, your thoughts on what we're doing. Everything we hear, we apply it if it's necessary, and we're just here to build a good company, not only for our employees, but for our customers.
Good. Well, that's great. Well, Carl, thanks for being on the show today. I really appreciated it. And a lot of people who are listening to this probably don't know, though they can see the Adrian Peterson poster behind you. And of course, I've got my Baylor shirt on. Baylor and Oklahoma played just a few days ago. And I guess as expected, Oklahoma won, but it was a good game. Like we said, it was a little bit more of a defensive battle than some have seen in the Big 12 over the last few years. So it was exciting to see a grudge match like that.
Yeah, it was brought back some great memories watching defense for the first time in many years. But yeah, it was a good game, and you guys are going to be good. You guys are ramping up. Next season is going to be a great game. It's going to be a good match every year between the two teams.
I hope so. So, all right. Well, great. Well, thank you to all the listeners. Thanks for listening. I like I said, I'm very excited about season 2. This is the first episode, and this is just a sign of things to come. We're going to have great sessions, great content. And, I've really gotten to know Carl. Actually, I've known him for years. Like I said, I've really got to know him a little bit better over the last few months due to some work stuff. And, quite frankly, this is what we want this show to be about. A good place to hear content, to develop ideas, to learn and grow. So thank you for listening, and we will talk to you soon. Thanks. Bye.